parents and family members. My name is Shari Obrentz. I'm an Associate Dean in the Office for Undergraduate Education, and we want to welcome you to the final webinar in our Family Friday series. We are back again on Friday. I'm joined today by my co-host and partner in crime all summer, AVP in Campus Life of Parent Family Programs, Bridget, Guernsey, Riordan. And we're so very thankful for you joining us today for a really special topic about parenting a college student. And so before we introduce our guests, I'll let Bridget say hello and we will get started.
Hey everyone, it's good to see you again. We're really excited about today's program because we have parent and student and they have a lot of expertise to share with you. And so Shari and I have our group of questions that we'll ask and we're excited to get going, and welcome again.
So to finish off our Family Friday series, we thought it would be really nice to have a conversation. We usually invite Carla Freeman, our Dean of Faculty, to talk about parenting a college student. One, she's a faculty member here at Emory College, also a parent of an Emory College alum and a current Emory College student, so has lots of great information to share. But we also thought it would be great this year to introduce Alice, one of her daughters, to talk about her experience at Emory. And especially since we're in a new environment this year, doing a lot online, hearing some of her insights too. So a little bit different than some of our other formats. We do not have a formal presentation. We're just going to be asking conversational questions. If you have questions that you would like to ask Carla and Alice as well, please feel free to use the chat. But we're going to get started and let actually Carla and Alice introduce themselves, and then we'll start with the questions.
Want to go first?
Hi, I'm Alice. I am a junior at Emory studying art history and economics. I am from Atlanta. My mom was a professor at Emory my whole life, and my dad is also a professor there. My sister went there before me, and yeah, just here to ease the transition.
Okay, as Alice and Shari have said, I'm Carla Freeman. I've been on the Emory faculty for 25 years this month. So this is an anniversary occasion for me. I came to Emory as a new assistant professor of anthropology and women's studies. I've spent the last 7 years in the college dean's office. And I just want to say, I've taught Emory students for all these 25 years. I'm a faculty member who really thought that she knew the ins and outs of what it is to be an Emory student. I've been to lots of students' weddings. I've met their children. I've written letters of recommendation for their career trajectory. But I have to confess, it was really only at the point at which my first child, Alice's older sister, Isabel, joined Emory College as a freshman. And as I've watched each of them experience the life of a college student, that I've really gotten kind of an on-the-ground sense of what it is to be a college student here. So I hope I can share some of my own experience as a professor and as a college administrator, but most importantly as a parent in helping you navigate this really interesting and exciting juncture for your children.
Okay, so let's jump on in with question 1. What has pleasantly surprised you about the online classroom?
I'll go first since I've experienced the online classroom. Last semester when we transitioned after spring break, I had 2 massive research projects due within a week of each other, and I was really scrambling. And I've never really been one to go to office hours for my professors because I find that really intimidating. Also, I was getting lost on campus really until last semester. So to have my professors just email me a Zoom link and be able to drop in for a 2-hour session once a week and chat to them and figure out what I was doing in a one-on-one situation that was a lot less intimidating for me for some reason was incredibly helpful. Office hours online, I would say, make it somewhat of an equal playing field for students and faculty to engage with one another in a surprisingly lovely way. So that has been definitely a silver lining for me.
I hope you as parents heard that my child, who's 20 years old and grew up on Emory's campus, was getting lost with great frequency. So if your child finds it a little challenging to find their way around, that really comes with the territory, and they will get a lot of support and help and find their way. When I think of some of the silver linings and kind of unexpected positives that have come out of this admittedly challenging migration from a lovely face-to-face and very intimate campus experience to the online platform for teaching, one of them has been that a number of faculty, for example, who teach classes over, say, 30 students, large lectures in economics or large lectures in Latin American and Caribbean studies, have told me that, interestingly enough, the online platform, which they, for the most part, had not experienced before, gave them a kind of intimate connection with students who are shy and less inclined to participate in a large lecture class, or often shrink to the back of the room and kind of disappear. So that's one kind of unexpected silver lining. Another has been that, for the most part, Emory faculty up until this year have shown some trepidation about teaching online. We've offered online classes in the summer, some in the semester, but for the most part, these have been few and far between. Those faculty who have taught online overwhelmingly say that the caliber and experience of those classes has really been equivalent to their face-to-face classes. But I would venture to guess, and this is, maybe not surprising to any of you, I would venture to guess most of our faculty have heard that response and taken it with a big pinch of salt. One of the things that's been really interesting is that faculty who migrated in March, in the hurry-scurry of the unexpected return home, really put a lot of elbow grease into that transition. What's wonderful is that this summer, our faculty who otherwise would have been conducting their own research and sometimes going off on vacation, put their energies into learning how to teach well online. And I think we're quite unusual in terms of the landscape of higher education in the fact that over 600 faculty, all of our faculty, committed to an online teaching training opportunity this summer so that they really could redevelop their classes. And I've heard from a lot of our faculty that they feel that all of their teaching is being made by that training. So that's something that none of us would ever have wished to have undertaken, and yet I think is going to improve the pedagogy for all of our students and faculty college-wide. So that's a kind of, I've been keeping a list of COVID silver linings, and I would put that really at the top of it.
Thanks for sharing those great silver linings. We know that there are going to be challenges, though, being an online, we know from the faculty's point of view and also students. So what has been kind of a challenge in this new online learning environment? I guess, Alice, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say maintaining focus can be hard when you have back-to-back classes and you're taking from your dorm room or like from your bed even. Would not recommend that, but maintaining focus is really difficult, and it can be easy when your class is on your computer to switch over to something else, like readings for another class or your email or other things to respond to, which is why I found it quite helpful to, between classes and that like 20-minute break that I have, to like walk around somewhere or like get a snack or do something else or just step away from my screen, because it's so much energy that you're putting in just staring at your laptop. And then you have to do your homework, which is also staring on your laptop. And it can be easy to forget that there's like other things to do around, or just to get a coffee somewhere else. I have found recently, even though we started 2 days ago, I really need that.
Yeah, the Zoom fatigue is real. I think we're all feeling that.
I would answer that question both from the point of view of a parent watching her child at home initially, taking classes online from home, as well as from the faculty perspective. I think for faculty, the biggest challenge right now is honestly missing out on seeing their students face to face, in person, live, and intimately close and not 6 feet apart. So for our faculty who are teaching in person under these circumstances, I'm sure it feels challenging just to be spread apart in, spaces that otherwise would be utilized by larger classes. Our faculty love the contact with students, and I know that they're going to make a lot of effort to try to make up for the gaps, but I know that that's a real loss. Just one thing that I observed, and this echoes one of Alice's points just a minute ago, this is what I've observed as a parent, is that, as Alice says, it really is important for students to take their classes dressed and out of bed. And that may seem like a really patronizing thing to say to, first year students or even upperclassmen, but I think we've all succumbed to leisure wear in a new way. And there is something to be said for maintaining the kinds of routines of showering in the morning, getting up, getting dressed, making breakfast, and getting up and exercising and out of, away from that laptop, away from the screen, in ways that are just healthy and will make the work better, richer, more engaged, and make us all less exhausted, probably.
I'll put in a plug. We actually developed a How to Be a Successful Online Learner module with lots of different partners from around campus. So we have people from the Counseling Center talking about self-care, and students talking about creating their environment, their schedule. And that's something that we've actually loaded into our PACE 101 class that all students are going to take and see. And so I would encourage your students, when they have access to it next week, to really go through those little modules and the tips, because they do seem obvious, right? It seems, yes, make a schedule, stick to your schedule, go for a walk. But I do think we all get kind of sucked into the Zoom void, and it's easy to forget that the things that make us feel good really make us feel good. So we should practice those too.
Okay, we have a question for Alice. Can you discuss how you found your people, whether that be friends, faculty, staff?
Yes, I definitely. So I came in with a roommate. We met in a Facebook group chat. We both ED'd. And she became one of my best friends really fast. And so that I was really lucky in that regard. But moving beyond her, I didn't know what I was going to major in when I came into school. And so one of the things that helped me decide were like the people in each of my classes. So I tried out art history, and I tried out women's studies, and I tried B-school classes. That was a time. And I met people in each of those classes that, being able to share interests in like art or the stock market. I don't know who is particularly interested in that, but like that helped me a lot to find people with common interests. And then you meet people, and like I met one of my best friends at the Panini bar in the dining hall. Like you just have to be open-minded and meeting people in like all different sorts of places, and not be committed to like either the rush process or joining a certain club or like a sports team. I think it's important to look beyond that and be willing to meet people wherever you go. I have made some of my best friends on study abroad programs, or in my summer calculus class, which was all online this summer. The one other girl who had never taken calc before, we became really close because we struggled a lot. And being able to like maintain those relationships post classes can be a little bit difficult, but they're just everywhere, and you're never really settled with one group, I would say. So keep an open mind.
Before I ask Carla kind of a follow-up, Alice, how easy is it to ask people for phone numbers or emails in class just to say, hey, we're in this class together, can we share notes? Or are people open to that? Is that a tactic if it's even, afraid to start up a conversation? I might be dating myself and what I did in college, but.
No, it's really easy, I would say. The Panini bar one, like it took a couple times seeing one another in the dining hall to be able to be like, what's your number? But especially for classes, you're going to need help and support, especially freshman year, and like figuring out how you have to study for that particular class or what kind of external work you need to be doing for it. And you need to have like allies in each class. And I felt it, I was always a little bit nervous to ask for other people's numbers, but you get used to it. It just takes like a week. And everyone is in the same boat first semester, like absolutely everyone. And everyone wants to meet people and doesn't really know how. But pushing yourself to do that is never a loss, because you might meet your best friend through that person or something like that.
And Carla, from a faculty perspective, what advice do you have for students in connecting to faculty or departments or people on campus, even if they're not on campus this fall?
I'm going to respond to that in 1 second, but I'm also going to add a little addendum to your previous question and Alice's response to it. I heard a really lovely story yesterday from one of our faculty members who was very nervous about teaching her first class. It was a first year seminar, an amazing one actually. But our faculty are nervous, as are our students. So I think it's actually good for students to know that everyone's a little anxious and nervous right now. And she described for me that she did a little poll of the students of what they were most nervous about. And one of the things was about finding their people. And so at the end of the class, she left the Zoom link open for them for an extra half. And she said to them, you know, would you all like to stay and chit chat with each other? And I'll get off. And she left the room and they stayed on for about a half an hour. And what they did was to share their phone numbers. And they, you know, so I think they were organically finding their way, even in this remote, you know, laptop world, to exactly where you were, Shari, as a college student. So how to connect with faculty, even in these remote circumstances, or face-to-face, as the case may be, for students who actually are living on campus. As I said a minute ago, our faculty are so hungry for the contact with students, just as students are. And so, and I think Alice mentioned this, office hours, I think, are the single easiest and best way to get started in getting to know faculty and letting them know that you're interested or you're just curious about how they found their way into this field of philosophy or economics or neuroscience or whatever the case may be. That's a really good icebreaker question that students can ask professors, and they're all professors are really eager to share that story. So office hours, I think I would recommend first and foremost, but our faculty are also hard at work at finding some creative solutions. One of our faculty members who's teaching from home for health reasons is also really eager to meet with students at a 6-foot distance. She lives in the Emory neighborhood, and she has said, oh, I'm planning on meeting my advisees and anyone who wants to meet with me, and just in my garden. You know, Atlanta has the advantage of a climate that stays warm really until Thanksgiving, or warm-ish with a nice cozy sweater. And so I think for as long as our students who are residential are here until the Thanksgiving break, those opportunities will be possible, and faculty are eager to get up and out of their seats. So and a lot of our faculty do live close enough that they would be more than happy to do a walking consult with a student and get to know a student at a 6-foot distance through their masks. And I think that will become also a new normal. So, you know, I do think that just as we're talking with each other right now and there's a real intimacy, this doesn't feel that much different to me than it would if we were sitting around a table, except that we would probably be sharing a coffee or something like that. But I think there is an intimacy that one can experience even through the screen, face-to-face, one-on-one. So that's what I would really recommend.
Okay, our next question is, I'm going to phrase it in 2 ways, because the question is how to deal with homesickness. But during the pandemic, we also want to know how to deal with isolation, because some people are at home learning. So, but everyone is pretty much doing virtual learning. So how do you deal with homesickness and isolation?
I wish I knew. I suppose living so close to home my first 2 years, I didn't experience homesickness in the way that many of my friends did. But this year, I can't go home. Now that I've moved into an apartment, it's a risk for me to go home and expose my parents to COVID, because I would probably be asymptomatic if I were to have it, even though I am getting regularly tested and I wear a mask. But so I'm dealing with it now. And it's quite hard. I would say, though, that many people feel it. And homesickness, I think one of the worst parts of it is that it makes you feel isolated in a similar way to actually being isolated makes you feel. But most people around you are experiencing it as well. So it's an illusion. Your isolation is an illusion. And your homesickness makes you feel very lonely, or it makes me feel really lonely. But my roommate is like 5,000 miles away from home. And so chatting to her about it has made me both appreciative of my own situation, but also realize that we do have technology to like talk to our parents. Or, I mean, I FaceTime my mom like almost every day. I won't lie, and I'm 20 years old, but I still really rely on her for her advice. So I'll go take a walk in low water almost every day and give her a call then. Or my older sister, who is the most brilliant person in the world. Like, she is the person I miss most being here. But there's always 5 minutes that you can give someone a call, I would say. And also other people are experiencing it as well. And so talk to them about it and make them feel less lonely, and you'll realize that you're not as alone as you think you are. Mom, what do you think?
I guess what I would say, and this is the part of the session which under normal circumstances, when I've given this talk to parents, none of the students are in the room. And to be honest, there are often a lot of tears at this point in the session. There are a lot of parents sitting in the audience who have just dropped their children in their dorm rooms for the first time, and they're feeling very emotional. And so I think it isn't just the kids, just the students who feel homesick or a sense of longing for their, their 18-year-old or 17-year-old. I think it's an adjustment for the parents too. And this may be anticipating a future question, but I think figuring out the comfortable level of contact, bless you, is tricky and unique for every family. I think there's no single right answer to the question of how to deal with homesickness or how often one should call or FaceTime or text. Every student is different. Every family constellation is different. Just as Alice said, she often reaches out to me or her big sister or her dad. She often gets support from her friends. I think it's true that parents also need to lean on each other, either within the family or calling up a friend, because I think the sense of sadness at this juncture, in conjunction with the joy and excitement and pride that every parent feels in watching their child who they've nurtured all these 18 years, fly the coop and be launched, is a really bittersweet one. And I think rather than trying to just tamp that down and repress it or pretend that it isn't there, I think it's important to share it. I guess that's what I would say.
And knowing that this is such a personal family decision about how often should you call or text, maybe I'm going to rephrase the question is, how do you have the conversation about setting up, how often should we call or text or check in, or, I know when my mom misses me, she calls me and then texts me and then leaves me a voicemail that she just texted me. So if you can maybe shed some light on that, having those conversations.
Yeah, it's funny because before this session, Alice and I had a little chat about, what did we think about these questions that we were prompted with in advance. And it's interesting because I was under and here Alice is a junior already, and I was under the impression that sending her a quick text was probably less intrusive as a way of just checking in and seeing if everything was okay than a phone call. And she responded and said, actually, no, I really prefer it when you just call me. So that's interesting. I think you're absolutely right that parents should talk with their kids about what feels comfortable. It's also the case that I think by and large, when we don't hear from our kids, it's usually a sign that they're really happy. And not interrupting that happiness is something that I think we should all use restraint and respect, because we do want them to be independent. We do want them to not feel that they have to check in at every juncture. And I will say, as a very emotional parent, I often share a few tears with the parents in a normal session like this. As a very emotional parent, I've also had to realize that I don't want my kids to feel my own sadness about the juncture. Like, I want them to know that most of all, I'm incredibly proud and excited about all the adventures that they're having. And so you can hear the emotion in my voice. This is hard for parents. And I think it's also, as I said, really important that that our students mostly feel that their parents are kind of in the background, ready to support them, not too eager to sort of jump in and fix things for them. Really, what we want to convey is that we want to help them be independent.
And Bridget, I'm going to let you've said this, I think, in maybe 3 or 4 of our webinars all summer, but sometimes, and maybe you can share your experience that you've had with your daughters. Sometimes your kids call just to vent or tell about the bad day.
Oh yeah.
And by the time that the parent has emailed me or Carla or you about it, it's like a blip on the radar. And so
Right.
maybe you want to jump in with some of those
Yes.
experiences and how you've dealt with that.
Well, it's like my unconditional love part. You know, we give y'all unconditional love. And so my daughter knows that she can vent to me. She knows that I won't judge her. She knows that I will love her at the end of the day. And so I've had friends say this too. And then we're all hepped up on how to help her solve the issue. And then a half hour later, I find out the next day that she talked to someone who helped her solve the issue. So I think we all as family members have to take that in stride and just be cognizant of the fact that students do need to vent to us. They're overwhelmed. There's so much new, and we're in a pandemic. So you have it even doubly this year. So just be patient with your student, be patient with yourself. We don't expect everybody to know all the answers. And just remember that one of the questions we always say to them, we said it on the webinar yesterday, is ask your student, what do you plan to do about that? And they may have thought of what their solution is. And then you can oftentimes just talk with them through the solution. So we're all in this together. There's solutions out there. It's just a matter of trying not to get overwhelmed with them. So we're going to move on to our next question, which is more about the academic side. And it's, what advice can you give about studying for Emory College courses? You know, how does that change in the online learning platform?
I would say this really is something that each person will have to figure out a bit for themselves, but could give some sort of advice. I would say you should talk to your professors about what they think you should be doing for the class. Because they have ideas and they know, and they've taught it before, and they've watched their students learn from them before and like figure out what their best strategies are. So they're bound to have ideas for you, or talk to other people in the class. But it's, I mean, for my art history courses, it was going through my slides. I had to do that every day to make sure that I was learning the pieces. My econ courses, I could put off until like a couple nights before an exam and then start refreshing. But it's going to be different for different material and for different people. I know I had one friend who had to cram econ every single night to be able to understand certain things. But she knew that she had to do that. She didn't know the first time she took that course, and she ended up getting a D, and she retook it and got an A. And that's okay. And you can do that. And you can take a withdrawal if you need to as well. Taking a W doesn't do anything to your GPA. It's totally fine. Most of my friends have taken a W before. My older sister took 5, and she graduated with highest honors. You know, it's different for different people, and other people's strategies won't necessarily work for you, but your professors will certainly have ideas.
One thing I would add to that is that, and I watched my older child go through this. You know, Emory students are exceptional. Your children are really, really smart. They've gotten A's in high school. They're very accomplished. They're extremely ambitious for themselves. And as a result, I think many students come to college thinking, oh, I'm already ready for that advanced class. And that one looks so interesting. I want to leapfrog over the 100 level class and jump right to that 400 level seminar. I watched my older daughter do that, where she read in the course catalog this fascinating description of a course that was precisely what she wanted to actually do research about, like when, at some point. And so unbeknownst to me, she wrote to the professor of her own accord. I don't think registration had even started yet, but she wrote to the professor and she said, this was Marshall Duke, one of our revered senior members of the psychology department. Dear Professor Duke, I am already set. I want to do research on the topic of your senior seminar. Is there any chance you would let me take it? And he, being the wise Professor Duke that he is, said, sure. Come along. He said, I will warn you that this is a course that has been designed for advanced students. It's designed for seniors. But if you're sure this is what you want to do, I'm going to give you the opportunity. And she went along to that class. And one class in, she could just feel from the tenor of the discussion in that seminar, this was way beyond her. And it was a really sobering but important lesson, which is that this is college. It is going to be harder. It should be harder. Our students should not expect to get A's in all of their classes. They may need to withdraw from a class for one reason or another. So I guess I would just say, be ambitious, but be realistic. And our faculty have designed classes at the 100 level and 200 level, really thinking those are designed for first-year students, and they will be challenging enough. I guess that's just one little kernel of advice.
If I could add just one other thing, I would say a lot of Emory students, myself included, can be really competitive when it comes to classes, and to just try not to get sucked into that as much, or to try to help your kids avoid comparing themselves to other people, because you don't know what they've taken in high school or what they're doing outside, or if they've done research in it before, or how much work they're putting in. People like to brag about, like, I studied 6 hours for this, or like I stayed up all night to do that work, but you should sleep instead of staying up all night to do that assignment. And you should do what you think you need to do for something instead of listening to what other people have to say, because it's just the competitive one-upping one another, saying certain things. So yeah, that's important.
Yeah, sleep is important. I'll reiterate that one. In college, my friends used to joke with me because I didn't go to the library to cram the night before. It's because I did my studying an hour a day. And so they were just like baffled about how I could get away with not working. But to your point, everybody kind of has to figure out their own style. And the other nice thing is we have so many resources for academic support that are led by other faculty or other Emory students. So our ePass peer tutoring, we have 65 subjects that sophomores, juniors, and seniors who've been in the classes are helping students figure out. We have academic coaches who can really share some of the best tips and tricks about doing their reading, or when to sleep and when to exercise. And so those are all included. They're all online this year, this fall. We'll talk about them a lot in our PACE class. I just see a question in the chat. Are you sharing this information with our students? Yes, we promise we are. But we like to talk to you all as well, because you can hear it a little bit differently, and then remind them. This is Bridget's advice, is always saying, remember that resource ePass? Have you looked into that? Or asking them questions about what they followed up with instead of solving it on your own too.
Right. And to add to that, what Shari said, we noted it in our webinar yesterday, but if you weren't on that webinar, there's a writing center, and Shari mentioned the tutoring. Advise your students to use those resources, because they are there for them and they benefit them because they've never written for college before. And to get that input early on helps them see how to shape their papers. They've not written for Emory College before. And also with tutoring, don't wait until week 6 or 7. If you think you're stumbling early on, then seek out a tutor, get that help, and then you'll determine whether you need to stay in that class or what you're going to do. So Emory resources are there for students. They're plentiful, and students need to use them.
So I'm seeing a question in the chat, and actually this is something we were going to ask anyway, but maybe to Alice, what is the best way, or how can your parents be supportive without feeling naggy? You know, at what point do you need to hear, are you getting enough rest? Are you eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Are you exercising? Are you walking? Or not?
Well, first off, I would just like to say, like, first semester is really hectic, and they probably won't be exercising as much as they should be, and they probably won't be eating as well as they should be. I had like that Domino's pizza card, and I got 2 large pizzas every Friday, which was bad for me, but you just had to do it, and it was a rite of passage, more or less. So I wouldn't expect them to have like a perfect transition all at once. That's not going to happen. And you shouldn't nag them about that because they're just trying to work it out for themselves. But I would say the first couple weeks, you should let them be. Or that's what I needed. I needed to settle in and to not worry about comforting my parents through the loss of my like glorious personality in the house. And after those first couple weeks, I did appreciate being called like twice a week, I would say, or texted just to check in. But it really, I don't think it should be more than a couple times a week unless they're reaching out to you. Let them come to you like a shy woodland creature, and they'll do that, I'm sure.
I think this goes back to really setting up the boundaries at the beginning and having those honest conversations about what every student needs. Some might need you to call every day to check in and make sure that you're going for a walk, and others once a week, once every 2 weeks might be okay. I also wanted to plug that all of our first year students are taking a Health 100 class, which I know sometimes it's, you're making our students take Health 100, but we have a Center for Human Health as one of our departments at Emory, and they've designed this course. It's actually based on the 5 pillars of health and really helping your students figure out what their own values are and how they're going to set up healthy lifestyles, and, you know, making sure that they're learning about sleep and how sleep helps consolidate memories and all that good stuff, nutrition, exercise. And so we're hoping to set some really good examples and set that foundation for leading healthy adult lives as well.
Okay, our next question is for the mom, the teacher on faculty, and that is, what do you wish every parent knew? Write a book on that.
Yeah, I could write a book about it. There are a couple of things that I would say. One is just to remember, and this seems so obvious, but I think it bears reminding. You know, your child has gone off to college. This is a really big rite of passage. Your household may feel different if this is your first child going off or your last child going off. There's a whole recalibration of the other relationships in the household and how you're going to feel. So as I said before, quite emotionally, you know, there are elements where that feels heartbreaking. It's also the case that your child is still your child. They're going to come home. You're going to still talk to them on the phone. You'll visit them periodically, perhaps. And they're going to grow in some incredibly wonderful ways that just enrich your relationship all the more. They're going to come home with a new vocabulary. They're going to have new views and opinions about things. You're going to have more interesting discussions around the dinner table when they do come back. So yes, this is a change, but it's a really exciting juncture to become a parent of an adult. That said, your child is not really yet a college student. They're in this kind of liminal place. They're still sort of a high school kid, and they're becoming a college student. And so this first semester is a kind of delicate period. And so I will say this not to frighten any parents out there, but just to say, you know your child, you know your student, you know their tone of voice better than anyone. So to Bridget's point, it is true that it may be that your child will call you really upset about, like, they didn't get into this course that they were determined to get, or someone that they thought was their friend suddenly doesn't seem to be around at all. And they don't know, they feel like they're the only person who doesn't have friends, or they feel really frantic about something. You know your child better than anyone, and chances are you can help them climb down from that ledge. That said, if you hear a tone of voice that feels frightening to you, or that really seems to warrant some intervention. It isn't just, Alice being Alice. She's dramatic occasionally, whatever. There are resources at Emory that you can call upon. And I'll confess, I did that one time. I was really worried about my older daughter. She called me, which she didn't do that often, actually. And it was late at night, and I didn't have my phone near me. I would think I was watching a movie. I went to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I happened to pull out my phone, and I saw that she had texted me several times, which was highly unusual. She was an early to bed kid. And I got really worried that something had happened. And I made a phone call. And I'm really glad I did. And within minutes, the RA on her hall called me back and said, she's fine. She's asleep in her dorm room, And then I was embarrassed and, had to live with that embarrassment. But if ever you feel that degree of fear, you should reach out, and there are great resources. But I'm not going to end on that sober note. The other thing I want every parent to know is this really is an exciting and amazing place. Your child, your student has entered a community where they are going to make incredible friends. They are going to get to know people, whether in their classes or in clubs or in the panini line or wherever it may be, that are going to change their ways of thinking. They're going to change and enhance them as a human being. They're going to be in classes where they will come to learn to think in completely new ways. And they're going to be given an opportunity to decide and really think deeply about who they are as a human being and what kind of mark they want to make on the world. And I can't think of a more important gift that you as parents are giving your children. So even in these anxiety-producing COVID-19 unprecedented times, and maybe even especially in those times, this is such an extraordinary opportunity. And whether they are experiencing a lot of it through the contours of their laptop or face-to-face, they're going to grow in some amazing ways. And you should know that they are being surrounded by students and faculty and administrators and staff who care deeply about their growth. So all I can say is enjoy the ride with them.
Well, those are really the end of our formal questions, unless you each want to kind of leave everybody with one more nugget. Carla, I think that was a great nugget. So unless there's one other thing that you didn't share. And I'm just looking at the chat too. So for those of you who are still with us, thank you. You've been participating in great ways and asking good things. If anybody wants to ask anything to Carla or to Alice or to me or Bridget, we're happy to take those. And while I'm looking at that, Alice, any final wrap-up words or things you want to share with our parents and families?
You're muted.
Sorry, that happens a lot. I think one thing I would like to just reiterate is that if they aren't calling you all the time, it probably means that they're doing really well. And they're just busy and excited and happy. And there's so much going on and so many new people to meet, and that they're really just doing well.
And one of the things I want to add too, if you have a true family emergency, you can call our Emory Police 24/7, and they have access to our staff if your student lives on campus and can reach out to your student. So just know you can call Emory Police 24/7 and they will get to the right staff to get to your student. Also, keep in mind your student may have to mute their phone for class, and they may have turned it off even, or they wore the battery down. And so those are things we don't usually run into when they're with us. And so for them not to respond can be startling. So just keep in mind, oftentimes it's a really easy explanation and somewhat comical. And then you say, okay, your battery was down. Okay. So just keep that in mind and take a deep breath. And I think Alice's point was really well taken, that you don't hear from them a lot. They're living their lives. They're becoming the university students, and as we say, emerging adults. So they're living their lives.
And as someone who had to mute my phone because my mother was calling during the webinar too, they will continue to check in on you as adults as well. So. Well, thank you both so much. This has been a great conversation, and I think the perfect note to end our Family Friday wonderful webinar series. Big thank you to our producer, Blaze, who has helped make all of these live and help manage our chat. And Bridget is actually going to announce our final kind of turnover because our new student program series is ending. This is our last one, but the fun is just really beginning. So Bridget, take it away.
Yes, so Family Friday was created by Shari's office last summer, and we had so much fun doing it last summer, and we continued it this summer. And Family Programs is taking that same logo and that same name, and we're using it for our Family Friday webinars, which will start next Friday. So next Friday, you'll see on our portal link, we'll have that up hopefully by Monday. We are doing on family engagement. And what we're going to talk about is how you can be engaged in what we call the life of the university, appropriately, of course, because you have your student there and they're engaged totally. But we want you to know how we're in your region through our advancement and alumni engagement staff, how our students want you to be involved. There's all kinds of ways that families can be engaged at the university. So that will be next Friday at noon. Stay tuned for that. And then throughout the school year, we're wanting to hear from you about what you'd like to hear from. In the past, we've done sessions on housing selection. So you will know for your second year students, how they do housing selection. We've done it on how to get involved on campus, how everything works with our counseling center. So keep posted and we'll have more information for you.
And for that, thank you all again so much for joining us. I actually am going to go teach class, my first Zoom class in about 11 minutes. So thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. And congrats for making it through orientation with your students. You have been amazing. So good job to all of you as well.
Mm-hmm.